At Team Toyota, they've been selling and servicing new and used Toyotas in your community for over 50 years. And you can reserve your next new Toyota with them today. You'll get a realistic timeline, and even in this crazy market, they won't charge you over MSRP. Or don't wait at all. With over 75 certified Toyotas, including a bunch of RAV4 and Highlanders, you can drive one home today. And you can always trust them to maintain your current vehicle. Their service and collision centers are high-tech, comfortable, and will save you time and money. Team Toyota can help you go anywhere you want, but they'll always be your hometown team. Just visit teamtoyota.net and choose from 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton. Hey folks, welcome to the Phillies Talk Podcast presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seidman. He is Jim Salisbury. It's the final day of May, and the Phillies are 21-28, Jim. They just began a homestand by losing in another devastating late loss to the Giants, where for the second straight game, someone hits a dramatic home run for the Phillies late. It was Nick Castellanos Sunday night with a 3-run shot to put them ahead in the 8th. On Monday, Kyle Schwarber ties the game on the second pitch of the 9th inning. Both nights, the Phillies lose. And so now they're 21-28. Now they're 11 and a half games behind the New York Mets. It just seems like we're past the point where we can say it's still early.
Oh, we are way past that point. You stop saying that, I'd say, when you're approaching the back half of May and we've arrived at the last day of May, and the Phillies will go into June, probably DOA in the division race, which is hard to believe. I'm coming to you today from the back porch because I needed to get outside and feel better after a 7-day trip with that team. My gosh, and then just a continuation of it yesterday in the first game of the homestand. It's very, very difficult to watch. And, yesterday, Memorial Day, another big home run late, two big home runs late, or a big home run by Schwarber late. And the night before, big home run by Castellanos late. And Tuesday night in Atlanta, big home run by Harper late. And you lose all 3 of those games. How different this little stretch would be if they would have won all 3 of those games. The record would be different. The mood around the team, which, I feel like is morose, having witnessed it up close. And that's what losing will do to you. All this stuff about, not having fun. Well, losing is not fun. You're not supposed to have fun when you lose. But I'll tell you what, when Bryce Harper hits one off the chop house Tuesday night, that dugout was a lot of fun. When Nick Castellanos hits a 3-run home run Sunday night late in that game in the 8th inning in Citi Field, that dugout was fun. When Schwarber hits one Monday, that dugout was fun. You got to close out those games and win those ball games. And they haven't, and they've given themselves so little margin for error. They've given their pitchers so little margin for error for a couple of reasons. One, they are once again grossly deficient on defense. And 2, they just don't provide these guys enough offensive support because they're so inconsistent offensively. And when you don't support your pitching staff in those 2 ways, they feel like they're on a tightrope all night. So it's bad enough they feel like they can't make a mistake, and it's bad enough that you don't support them offensively now, because then they have to feel like they have to be perfect. And when you don't support them defensively, they don't want the ball in play. They feel like they have to strike everybody out. So it's a double whammy on this pitching staff. I don't know how this defense is going to get better, because I just don't see a wholesale change of the cast of characters coming. Not having Harper being able to play in right field has hurt your energy level. It's hurt your defense. Schwarber and Castellanos are just, very poor defenders at the corner spots. And on that road trip, conservatively, that outfield cost them 6, 7, maybe 8 runs. And if you stretch it, maybe 10 runs with missed cutoff men, throwing to the wrong bases, Keystone Cops show with the ball going through 2 backups in center field in Atlanta. Then the ball with Herrera and Schwarber in Citi Field. And then the one that fell in between Quinn and Castellanos in Atlanta. And then I don't think the Mets run twice on Bryce Harper in the first game of that ball game series up in Citi Field. And they run twice in the same inning on Castellanos and get a couple of sacrifice flies on balls to medium center right field. And there is more. There is more. So you can't continually ask your pitchers to absorb these defensive miscues. And, this team was designed with defensive shortcomings. I mean, the front office went out and got those 2 sluggers. They knew there was going to be defensive problems. But, hey, we're going to hit over those defensive problems. And they haven't. And that's why they are, how many games under 500 now? 7 games under 500, 11 out in the division. And it's not even June 1. It's not even June 1.
Right. So, and what I was going to say is that's just what makes games like Monday even more frustrating, that the Phillies played a clean defensive game. They didn't have those gaffes in the outfield. They played a clean defensive game. They got a good starting pitching performance from Kyle Gibson. It was a crisp baseball game. It moved. It had a pace to it, and you still lose despite getting a big home run. That's what, you just think about all these games that they should have won that they've lost. The game that they led 7-1 against the Mets, they lost. These 3 times over the last week that they've hit the late home run, lost all 3 times. How about early in the season? There were 4 games where a Philly starting pitcher went 7 innings and allowed 0 or 1 runs, and they went 1-3 in those games. There's just so many of these contests they're giving away. We're talking about the division race potentially being over on June 1. Wild card race is not going to be that easy. I know there's an extra spot, but when you consider the number of teams that could contend in the National League, in the NL Central, for example, you have 3 doormats in the Pirates, Reds, and Cubs. The Brewers and Cardinals have 58 games against those teams. That's going to make a difference in terms of overall records. In the NL West, you have the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres all playing very well. In the East, you have the Braves. So that's 5 or 6 teams for 3 spots, just thinking about the wild card race. So
yeah, and I think the Padres learned a big lesson last year. A valuable learn how to win lesson, whatever the heck you want to call it, with their collapse, embarrassing, whatever you want to say it was. And I think they're going to be better down the stretch for that. I really do. So, yeah, there's no guarantee. And with the defense they're playing, they're not going to contend for the wild card because it's going to keep going that way, and it's eventually going to take you out of the wild card hunt.
So then what other than guys getting back to their track records or the Phillies embarking upon a portion of their schedule that's a little bit softer than the initial 2 months, what changes to turn this around?
Well, the biggest change I think that can turn it around is they're going to have to start playing the way you hoped they'd play when this team was designed. They're going to have to start out hitting people and supporting that starting pitching staff. And they're going to have to get some relief help to bridge to the back end. And they're going to have Corey Knebel stop throwing fastballs down the middle. Because obviously guys are hunting that pitch early in counts. So, but, obviously the elephant in the room is, will they make a change at manager? I don't know. I do know how major league teams operate and how management groups operate and even how ownership groups operate. And I bet you, anything they're talking about it. I bet you anything they're talking about every potential solution, whether they make trades or whether they make a shocking personnel move in the leadership at manager. But if they don't start catching the ball, it ain't going to matter. You could bring in Joe McCarthy, and who else? Bobby Cox, and you're not going to win if you can't catch the ball, if you can't hit the cutoff man, if you can't get in the gaps and prevent extra bases. You're just not going to win. So I'm not sure a managerial change would have any value other than shock value in a clubhouse. And sometimes that can carry you or light you up for a week or two, but it doesn't make a huge difference long term when you are so flawed and defensively and inconsistent on offense. So feast or famine on offense. So I bet it's something they're talking about, but I don't know that there's an obvious candidate. I don't know that it would make a huge difference. But Joe does seem beaten up and worn out by all this losing. There's no question about that. Losing is hard, especially when you have expectations. And gosh, they have expectations. $230 million payroll, huge postseason drought, big splashy signings in March. So I still don't rule out some type of a change there. I just don't know what difference it's going to make, and I don't know who the right person would be. The turnaround lies in that room, that clubhouse, with Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, Realmuto, Segura, Hoskins, with that bullpen, with that pitching staff. It's always about the athletes. They are always the biggest difference maker. And they need to take ownership for this horrendous showing here and take it upon themselves, excuse me, to turn this thing around. And we'll see if they have it in them.
Jim, I noticed as soon as we started talking, Girardi, the birds in your backyard began chirping. Was that them? I think they're weighing in on what the Phillies should do. Manager, everybody has an opinion.
Everybody's got an opinion about Joe. Mine is I was excited when he got hired here. I knew him for a long time, knew him well. I liked everything about him, and he just looks totally worn out and beaten up by all the losing. It's the guy that's been used to came out of a winning culture, and just the pattern of losing that this franchise is stuck in seems to have, in my opinion, beaten him down. We saw, a lot of fire out of him that first year, and now it just seems to have beaten him up, the pattern of losing. And, I'm not absolving him. I mean, I thought it was the wrong decision a week ago today in Atlanta. I thought that was such a bonus win. I mean, Harper hits that missile off the restaurant, and you're going to steal a win, and you're going to have fun in your clubhouse because you just won a ball game. I just think you need to bend the rules there and be a little bit, like an adjustable wrench. You can have your, your one setting, but there's times when you need to change the setting and bring in Knebel, who wanted to be in that game that night. And they lost that game. And, I don't think the clubhouse has ever been the same after that. But, the front office, I wonder if they're reluctant to make a move because, they're complicit in all this. They brought in inferior defenders because they had big bats, and the big bats haven't shown up. So the way it was scripted, the winning formula has not produced, and it's coincided with the Mets getting ridiculously hot and just nailing down the lid of the coffin over here. And I don't know how they're going to get out of it. Like I said, I know it's a cliche, but the way you get out of it is like you win tonight's ball game. You just win tonight's ball game, and you don't worry about it, and you don't listen to the birds chirping, you don't listen to us. You just win tonight, and if you got a late lead, you can't lose it. I mean, they lost 3 of them this week. Just very, very hard to see. And I'll tell you what, if they come out there Tuesday night, following up Monday's difficult loss, if they come out there Tuesday night and kick the ball around early in the game, maybe not even kick the ball around. Sometimes it's plays that nobody even notices, throwing to the wrong base. You need to throw to second base to keep the double play in order. You throw to third base, you got no double play. The runner moves up. Little things like that you got to avoid. That happened in Atlanta. If they come out and do that, I'm telling you, it affects your starting pitchers. It really does. And it's going to suck the life out of them. And then the guy in the other dugout, Gabe Kapler, is going to go right for the jugular vein. Because don't kid yourself. He has to be loving coming in here beating the Phillies.
Gabe admitted yesterday that the first year when he was in San Francisco, that he would, peek over at and see what the Phillies were doing. And that, he didn't go as far as saying like he took pride in the fact that things didn't turn around rapidly that first year. But he said, that he noticed that the Phillies kind of stayed in the same spot that they were in that first year after he was gone. Jim, the Mets look for real. They're without Scherzer and DeGrom right now, but that lineup is just so good. That is a versatile lineup. You compare the Phillies lineup to that lineup, right? The Phillies have a bunch of sluggers, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, Hoskins, that when these streaky hitters are not hot, it's difficult to score runs. The Mets have speed in Marte and Lindor, and they have on-base percentage in Nimmo and some of those other guys. They have power with Pete Alonso, who right now, he's right in that NL MVP conversation, the way that he's bashing the ball. The Mets look for real. The Phillies, we've talked about how the offense hasn't hit its stride yet. I know it's all doom and gloom when a team loses games like this, but there are signs of positive regression coming. Kyle Schwarber's hitting 188. He's a 238 career hitter. So some people might point to the fact that he hit 188, an identical batting average in 2020, but that was a 60-game season. Every time he's had a full year, he's hit at least 40, 50 points higher than he's at right now. Castellanos, same deal. He's right around 250. That's not Nick Castellanos. He's a 300 hitter with power. So you look at those things. You look at the fact that Castellanos has gone 2 straight games with a homer, the fact that Schwarber reached base 3 times yesterday and showed again that with one swing of the bat, he can change a game. Those guys are going to round into form. It's just a question of whether the Phillies are going to be 15 games under 500 by the time that happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do believe in track record. I do believe they'll get something going here. Maybe when the competition eases up and they don't see all this quality pitching. I actually had a player say that to me the other day, but as I countered to the player, this is the competition and the pitching you're going to see in October, if by chance you can ever get there. So you have to beat all comers, not just the crappy teams. And right now the Phillies are a crappy team. That's all I got for you.
Well, yeah, and the fact that before this grueling stretch of games started, you remember that it was a 2-game series at home against the Texas Rangers. The Phillies lost both games. So who's to say that when schedule lightens up and you have teams like the National, by the way, let's talk about that. The Phillies haven't played the Nationals yet. The Mets have played the Nationals a ton.
And the Arizona Diamondbacks, I think they've played too.
Yeah, so the Mets have a very difficult upcoming schedule. The Phillies, it softens up, but we've seen that they don't always play well against that inferior competition. Those games against the Nationals, given the fact that there's 19 left, beginning with a 5-game series in a few weeks here, Phillies need to go 14-5 in those games, don't they?
Yeah, and maybe those guys that you talked about will start moving toward their track records and you win those ball games. But the thing is, the Mets their schedule is going to toughen up at a time when they've built a lot of confidence and they feel like they can beat everybody. I love that Escobar. What a player he is. Getting to see him up close a little bit more. Very professional team, Cana. They're just a heck of a team, and they got a manager I believe has made a difference. We'll go back to what I was talking about earlier, where I was excited when Joe got the job. I really thought he'd be a kind of a leavening agent here, and he just hasn't been. He hasn't lifted this team, and obviously there's a lot of reasons why. Defense, the inconsistency on offense, it all can't go on the manager, and it certainly doesn't all go on the manager in this case. I put it on the players. They haven't played well. The makeup of the team, the construction of the team in terms of style of play is clearly flawed when you can't pick up the ball and you can't hit over your mistakes. But I thought he'd have more of an impact, and he just hasn't had that. And I think Buck Showalter early on has had that up in New York, and that has to gall the Phillies when they look at Dusty Baker and Buck Showalter having significant impacts on the teams that hired them when they were the finalists along with Girardi for this job here in Philadelphia. But it turns out even Joe Girardi's had a tough time lifting this team out of a pattern of losing, and there's a lot of reasons why. Some of it's on him, but not all of it, certainly.
Well, on Tuesday night, Ranger Suarez will look to put an end to the losing. He goes for the Phillies. It's Jacob Junis for the Giants. Jacob Junis is one of the most homer-prone pitchers in all of baseball. Fourth highest home run rate among active starting pitchers. It's like nearly 2 per 9 innings. So Phillies, hitting the ball over the wall, really league-wide slugging percentages are creeping up. So with the weather warming up, maybe hitting season will arrive here. But Ranger Suarez has looked shaky his last 2 outings, combining for 7 1/3 innings, 16 base runners. A lot of behind in a lot of counts, like 2-0, 3-0. And when Ranger Suarez gets behind 2-0, 3-0, he doesn't have like elite velocity to miss bats a couple times to get back in the count. So, I mean, he's kind of a question mark here for the Phillies. As well as he pitched last season, now you're wondering, like, man, is this guy going to be able to hold up through a 32-start season?
Yeah. Ranger's strength has always been the ability to get ahead and, put his fastball wherever he wants it. And I shouldn't say it's always been his strength. That was his strength last year when he had like that great season. And he hasn't been able to do that. So, he hasn't been able to locate that fastball and get ahead in counts consistently where he's kind of driving the at bat. And that's the reason he's had trouble, I believe. I wonder about him. I don't know if something's barking on him or not. I mean, they say no, he says no, but it's time to have a really good one here. He needs to have a good one tonight against the Giants. Everything always starts with starting pitching. I mean, that's more than a cliche. That's a fact. But bad defense can just take the life out of a start. We saw that in New York. Stott threw away a ball early behind. Was it Eflin, I think? And then they allowed 2 1-earned runs in the first inning behind Wheeler, and ball games are different. The ball game becomes different because you don't hit over those mistakes. So Ranger needs to spot his fastball tonight, get ahead in counts, and they need to pick up the ball behind him and throw it to the right place and throw it on the money.
Yeah, he needs it, and they need it. Phillies Giants Tuesday night. Phils are 21-28. They're looking to turn this thing around in a hurry. He's Jim Salisbury. I'm Corey Seidman. Thanks a lot for listening to the Phillies Talk Podcast.